The jungle wind shifted seconds before the alarms did. A thick, iron-smelling gust rolled through the canopy around Outpost Cora and Delta, making the leaves shiver with dread. Birds fled in tangled screeches. The trees, tall and armored in Fenris 9s. Dense atmosphere trembled like saplings. Then came the roar. It was a low, bone-deep sound more, like a grinding avalanche than an animal's cry. The scanners had barely enough time to identify the heat signature before the outpost sirens exploded in red panic. "Varric inbound," the automated voice barked across every loudspeaker. "Secure positions. Repeat, Varric inbound." Chaos followed. Centauri engineers dropped their plasma drills and ran, their tri-limbed bodies stumbling over crates and cables. Corthan scientists slammed down their tablets, abandoning decades of delicate climate research in an instant. Security drones spun up, gun ports extended, and turrets swiveled toward the jungle edge, but too late. The predator was already there. The Varrak thundered into view like a storm-given form nearly 6 meters tall at the shoulder, plated with obsidian-colored bone, and crowned with jaws wide enough to shear through armored transport. Its legs were powerful stumps of coiled muscle, built to tear through terrain as much as prey. But something was wrong. It wasn't charging. It stumbled, blood smearing behind it in long, dark streaks. One shoulder was blistered and blackened, the armor scorched clean through. Strange alien barbs jutted from its flank, pulsing with faint green light. The creature let out another roar, but this one wavered, weak, like a dying engine gasping for air. And that's when she stepped forward. In the middle of the scramble, Specialist Lena Maris didn't run. She didn't shout for backup. She didn't even glance at the gun rack. Instead, she knelt by the supply crate, pulled a slim white bag from her satchel, and unzipped it calmly. She didn't grab a weapon. She grabbed a medkit, through the reinforced command dome. Commander Yaren of the Corthan Collective slammed his fist against the control screen. "Get her back inside," he hissed, mandibles flaring with panic. She be torn apart, but no one moved. No one could look away. Lena walked with measured steps, slowly closing the distance between herself and the bleeding Titan. Her boots crunched on cracked foliage. Her free hand was raised, palm out, fingers loose, as if greeting a feral dog. As Zarak lifted its monstrous head, its eyes twin voids with slitted orange cores locked onto her. 1 breath. 2. The beast sagged, its front legs buckling. A soft, keening noise escaped its throat, half pain, half exhaustion. Lena dropped to one knee beside it, placing the medkit between them. The entire outpost held its breath. From high above, drone footage zoomed in on Lena as she reached out, fingers brushing against blackened hide. The Varrak didn't lash out. It twitched, then stilled. She opened a packet of salve, smeared it gently around a glowing barb, and began to work. No armor, no weapons, just soft words, firm hands, and a quiet defiance that cut through every layer of fear. And in that moment, under the eyes of half a dozen alien races, one truth began to form. Lena wasn't saving a beast. She was making it stay. The wind pressed against the outpost walls like a second pulse. Inside the command tower, Commander Yaren paced with jagged motions, his mandibles clicking in disbelief. Below, on the forest floor, the monster, the apex predator of Fenris 9, lay wounded, and the human knelt beside it, like she was treating a broken-winged bird. Yaren slammed a clawed hand on the console. "This is madness. She's malfunctioning humans. Must have neurological glitches." "She's not glitching," murmured the station's AI liaison, a calm voice rising from the speakers. "She's empathizing." "Empathy?" Yaren snarled, voice sharp. That thing could peel her spine out like wet wire. On screen, Specialist Lena Maris continued working, her hands moving with the practiced calm of a field medic trained under fire. Her blonde hair was tied back in a rough knot. Her sleeves were rolled up, exposing scars, old burns, slashes, and bites from other rescue missions. She dabbed at the wounds on the Varrock's flank, ignoring the growl that rumbled from its cavernous chest each time her tools scraped a raw edge. "It's okay," she whispered softly, her voice picked up faintly by the drones hovering nearby. "I know it hurts. I've got you." The barbs alien, metallic, humming with green. Pulses looked like weaponry designed to disrupt cellular regeneration. Some species use them for subjugating wildlife. Others for sport. Lena had seen their type before. She muttered a curse under her breath. Whoever had done this, it wasn't an accident. The Varrock hadn't just wandered in. It had been driven. Here, injured, hunted, cornered, its jaw shifted again, an experimental snap, more out of instinct than threat. Lena didn't flinch. She opened a ration pack and squeezed some nutrient gel into her hand. It smelled like synthetic fish and metal, but the Varrock's nostrils flared. It hesitated. Then, slowly, its tongue flicked out barbed and wide and swept the gel from her fingers. The outpost gasped in unison as the creature swallowed, and let out a low, rumbling sound that echoed like shifting boulders. Its breath grew slower, less ragged. On the platform above, one of the alien engineers, a thin Zenthari named Rulik, spoke for the first time in minutes. "Is it purring? That's not possible," Yaren snapped. "Varrock don't." But the sound deepened, vibrated the deck plates. Lena worked faster now. She removed the first barb with careful pressure, immediately spraying biofoam over the open wound. The creature hissed, not with anger, but pain, and then went still again. She whispered something nonsense words, gentle tones. It listened. And that, more than anything else, made Yaren's gill pouches tighten in unease. "This wasn't mercy," he said at last, staring at the footage. "No?" Rulik agreed, voice trembling. "It's something worse. She's claiming it," the commander whispered. They watched as the Varrock shifted its bulk slightly, moving closer to Lena, not in aggression, but in alignment. Its head lowered, resting just inches from her knee. She reached out and scratched lightly under its bone-plated jaw. Its eyes fluttered half-dash closed. Above, the drone scanned for hostility. The turrets stood by, but none fired. Down below, the human medic leaned back, sighed, and set up a small portable field shelter, just a canopy and a thermal mat. She didn't move away. She didn't retreat. She lay down beside it, arms folded. Under her head, the Varrock shifted again. Its tail curled protectively around the mat. The cameras rolled through the night, and when the second dawn broke over Coron Delta, the outpost awoke to a new reality. The deadliest predator on the planet had not only spared the human, it had chosen her. By dawn, mist curled through the clearing like pale breath from the sleeping monster's mouth. The jungle around Coron Delta had fallen unnaturally quiet, as if every predator, parasite, and scavenger knew that something ancient and dangerous now stood guard. And it didn't stand alone. Lena Maris stirred beneath the thin canopy of her field shelter. Her body ached from the chill of the night, and her medical tools were scattered beside her like discarded relics of an emergency never fully over. But as she opened her eyes, the shadow beside her shifted, and she remembered. Ghost. That was his. What she'd named him in a whisper sometime after midnight, when the massive beast had rested its scarred head beside her legs and exhaled like a collapsing hill. She hadn't known why then, only that it fit. He'd moved like smoke and thunder now. He moved like something. Waiting. Ghost blinked slowly. One of his eyes, still bloodshot, and ringed with exhaustion, fixed on her with the unmistakable focus of awareness. It was intelligent, not human, not even near human, but attentive in a way few on Fenris 9 would have ever dared to imagine. And he didn't move to kill her. He hadn't all night. Lina sat up, joints stiff. "Morning," she muttered, voice hoarse. "Still breathing, huh?" Ghost chuffed a deep, short huff that kicked up mist from the ground. His tail, plaited and heavy, flicked once. Back at the command center, a dozen species crowded around the surveillance displays. Footage had looped through the night heat signatures from both the human and the Varek, steady and calm. No aggression. No signs of fear. No motion toward the perimeter fences. Just coexistence. "I don't understand," muttered a Calrixian biologist, rubbing 2 of her 3 eyes. "That thing could have killed her 100 times. Why didn't it?" "She never gave it a reason," murmured Rulik. Commander Yeren crossed his arms. His ridged exosuit flexed with agitation. "She fed it. She healed it. She slept beside it like a littermate. This isn't science. This is sorcery." The observation drone dipped lower through the canopy, catching a new moment below. Lina rummaging through her ration pouch, unwrapping a compressed protein bar. She tore off a chunk, tossed it. Ghost caught it mid-air, jaws snapping shut with a wet crunch. He didn't move any closer. But he didn't leave. She offered another. He inched forward, lowered his head, and took it gently from her hand. The drone zoomed in. Ghost's lips never brushed her skin. In the background, engineers argued about the implications. Alien generals called for containment units. Biologists filed requests for neural scans, tissue samples, threat level assessments. Theories formed like sparks. Was he drugged, imprinted, traumatized into obedience? Nothing fit. Out in the clearing, Lina reached forward, not slowly now, not hesitating, and scratched under Ghost's jaw again, just beside the fracture line of his topmost armor plate. His eyes closed halfway, and his chest rumbled in a deep vibrato, a sound no one had ever recorded from a Varak, sound dangerously close to contentment. "He's not just tolerating her," whispered someone. "He's enjoying it." Yeren stared at the live feed, jaw tense. "We can't allow this. If she's found a way to tame a Varak." "No," came a quiet interruption from the rear of the room. All heads turned. Dr. Vesh, the station's senior xenopsychologist, stepped forward. His voice was low, thoughtful. She didn't tame him. She didn't break his instincts or overwrite his programming. She treated him like an injured creature in pain. She respected him, and he chose her. Yeren scoffed. "Predators don't choose. They dominate." Dr. Vesh shook his head. "Not always. Not when the alternative is something new. Something they've never felt before." "And what's that?" someone asked. The doctor's eyes didn't leave the screen. "Trust." Outside, Lina stood. Ghost followed. He didn't slink off into the jungle. He didn't vanish into legend. He walked beside her, towering, silent, each step slow and careful, as if adjusting to the strange rhythm, walking next to something smaller, softer, and utterly fearless. And Koran Delta knew every race, every being that saw the feed understood. Something had changed. This wasn't a rescue. This wasn't a fluke. The monster wasn't leaving. He had already chosen his pack. Ghost stayed. That was the first real shock. Not the feeding, not the purring, not even the way the apex predator curled its armored body protectively around a con. Human's sleeping form. No, what shattered galactic protocol was what came next. The Varak monster of myth, symbol of untamable deathworld savagery, simply refused to leave. 3 mornings after the incident, the jungle trail outside outpost Koran Delta parted with a rumble as Lina Maris walked to the hydroponic station. Ghost padded quietly behind her, like a living tank. Each footfall left deep impressions in the loamy soil, but he moved with eerie precision, never stepping too close, never blocking her path. His head swiveled constantly, scanning for threats. His tail swept side to side, not in agitation, but like a sentry adjusting position. The outpost had no idea how to react. Security turrets locked onto Ghost's signature every 10 seconds. Then disengaged. The AI refused to fire unless provoked. Autonomous drones swerved around him with programmed deference. Even the jungle predators' lurkers, Scythobeaks, coil hunters, had vanished from the perimeter. Coron Delta was now the safest location on Fenris 9, because he was there. Inside the administrative wing, Commander Yeren snapped his mandibles. In frustration, this is unsustainable. That thing is untagged, undocumented, uncontrollable. Dr. Vesh, sipping slowly from a steaming cup of kava root tea, gestured calmly toward the central holodisplay. It showed live footage. Lena sitting cross-legged in the courtyard, sketching on a data pad while Ghost sat behind her like a statue, unmoving, watching the trees. You keep using the wrong word, Vesh said. Uncontrollable? He leaned forward, eyes gleaming. But what if he doesn't need to be controlled? Yeren slammed the table. Because it's a predator. If she slips, if something triggers it, then he kills her, yes, Vesh finished. And yet he hasn't. Not once. Not even. Close. Do you think he doesn't remember pain? The barbs? The fire? The chase? That's what makes this worse than any training protocol, Commander. This isn't fear. It's choice. Down below, Lena raised her hand and pointed at something across the courtyard. An approaching hover sled delivering medical samples. Ghost moved to intercept, but didn't growl or charge. He merely stood between Lena and the vehicle, still as stone. His breathing slowed. The hover sled's operator froze, unsure whether to retreat or beg for mercy. Lena stood, walked to Ghost's side, and touched his shoulder. "Hey," she said. "He's okay. He's with us." Ghost stepped back. Sat down. The driver exhaled. So hard his goggles fogged. Back in the observation room, no one spoke. Finally, Rulik, the Xanthari engineer who'd once helped design anti-predator fencing, whispered, "That's not how wild things act." Vesh nodded slowly. "No, it's how pets act." Yeren recoiled. "Don't be absurd." "Is it absurd?" Vesh said. "She feeds him. She commands him. He protects her. And now? Now he's guarding the outpost like a trained companion." Yeren laughed bitterly. "You think she domesticated a Varrock in 3 days?" "No," said Vesh, more serious than ever. "I think she did something worse." The room leaned in. She made him loyal. A tremor ran through the group, not fear, not yet, but unease. Loyalty was stronger than fear, more dangerous than training. Loyalty meant defense, revenge, grief. Loyalty could spread. Yeren looked. At the holofeed again, Lena had sat back down. Ghost was beside her, dozing now, tail curled near her boots. "This is unnatural," Yeren muttered. "He should be dead or gone. Instead, ... he follows her." "And he's not just following," Vesh said softly. "He's learning." They all turned at that. "Learning what?" Vesh's voice dropped to a whisper. "Learning what it means to belong." Outside, a shadow passed overhead. Jungle birds scattered. A trio of scout drones returned with a worrying report 2 more Varrock were spotted deeper in the forest. And they were watching. From a distance, the beasts weren't attacking. They were observing, waiting, learning. 2 weeks passed. Ghost still hadn't left Dot in that time. The outpost's daily routines mutated around him. Patrol routes were redrawn. Landing schedules were staggered to avoid spooking him. Food shipments increased to include nutrient-rich protein bricks meant for larger fauna. No one dared call it what it was, but everyone knew. They were accommodating a goddamn apex predator. Ghost had become part of the station, no longer a threat. Not quite a guest. More like a shadow with teeth that stalked the perimeter, ever present. Listening. He followed Lena everywhere. From the infirmary to the refueling pad to the communication tower, always trailing behind her with slow, deliberate steps. Not like a prisoner or pet, but like a soldier guarding something. Irreplaceable. The aliens began whispering his name. Is the human alone? No ghost is with her. Don't cut through Storage Delta. He's sleeping near the water tanks. And slowly, something stranger happened. The outpost stopped fearing him. Not because Ghost was less dangerous. He wasn't. He still weighed over 20 tons. His claws could shear through a dropship bulkhead, and his bite force could crush engine plating, but he hadn't hurt anyone, not once. And in his silent, looming presence, nothing else dared. Try. One day, a venom-spitter jungle apex in its own right slithered out of the forest near the waste disposal yard. A 4-meter-long snake-limbed horror with acid glands and reflexes like whips. 3 technicians were cornered, their escape cut off. Ghost heard them scream. The cameras barely caught it. A blur of black bone, a deafening roar, and then silence. The venom spitter lay in pieces. Not torn for meat, just neutralized. Ghost stood over it, still as stone, tail lashing once. Then he turned and walked back toward the main compound. The cameras followed him to the cafeteria, where Lena had just finished her shift. She didn't ask what he'd done. She only handed him a chunk of rehydrated protein and scratched the ridge under his eye. He rumbled softly, lowered his head to her shoulder, and sighed. In the following days, Lena's nickname echoed through the jungle. Beast speaker. It began as a joke. Now it was a warning, because 3 different rogue elements poachers, scavengers, and 1 mercenary outfit attempted incursions onto Fayanr is -9. Made it within 20 meters of the fence. The few who survived described eyes in the dark, an unnatural silence, and something breathing just outside the range of their night vision. 1 scavenger returned weeping, half his armor scorched from a warning swipe. When asked what he saw, he said, death. But it had a name, and it was waiting for someone to whistle. Inside the outpost, Commander Yeren called an emergency council session. Every major race in the Allied Research Pact sent a representative to attend. This is not tenable, Yeren growled. This is not coexistence. This is possession. That creature is bound to a human. What happens if she dies? What happens if she leaves? Across the table, Dr. Vesh watched the surveillance footage from that morning Ghost, trailing Lena to the medical bay, nudging open the door with his snout, and curling around the building until she emerged. He's not guarding the outpost. Vesh said calmly, he's guarding her, and by extension, everything around her. He's not a pet, snapped Coral, the Scori diplomat. He's a living weapon. The humans have bonded with a death engine. We need to intervene. Vizel, the old Grauman counselor, leaned forward. Intervene how? He rasped. Kill it? Remove it? And risk what retaliation? From the humans or the beast? No one spoke. Then Yeren whispered, they call it loyalty. But I've seen what that really means in their species. He pointed at the screen. Ghost was lying on the tarmac again, tail flicking, watching Lena refill medkits inside the cargo shed. They don't just raise monsters, Yeren said, voice flat. They raise monsters that mourn. And everyone at the table knew that was the real danger. A monster that kills is bad enough, but a monster that loves? That would kill for the rest of its life. It happened on the 23rd day. A jungle patrol had gone missing 3 members of a mixed species team. Sent to survey. A mineral deposit 3 clicks from outpost Coron Delta. Their beacon died mid-transmission. No warning, no emergency ping. Just a burst of static. And silence. Lena Maris was in the infirmary when the call came through. She didn't hesitate. She threw on her gear, grabbed her trauma satchel, and headed straight for the gate. Ghost was already waiting. He'd heard it. He always heard it first. The gates parted slowly, groaning on reinforced hinges, and the outpost watched in collective silence as the human medic and her impossible companion vanished into the trees together. A small figure in gray fatigues, a monstrous silhouette at her side. 20 minutes later, they reached the site. The ground was scorched, littered with cracked foliage and the smell of scorched ozone. One of the drones had recorded a flare of plasma discharge before losing signal. There were boot tracks scattered running. One blood trail. No sign of the teen. Lena crouched near a patch of crushed ferns, examining a bent communicator and a splash of bright green alien blood. Then Ghost stiffened. The jungle went dead quiet. A second later, they heard the growl. It wasn't Ghost. Was lower, meaner, filled with something ugly. From the shadows between the thick alien trees, 4 creatures emerged, lean, quadrupedal, built like muscle-bound shadows with razor-hide plates along their backs. They weren't native. They were dropped here. Mercenary bioconstructs, designed to track, kill, and dissolve targets. Ghost stepped in front of Lena without a sound. One of the constructs lunged fast, jaws wide, more reflex than thought. It didn't even reach her. Ghost moved like thunder given form. One swipe of eye. His claw split the predator in 2. Not a scream. Not a struggle. Just meeting force beyond comprehension. The remaining 3 creatures paused, confused, sniffing the air. Another stepped forward. Ghost didn't wait. He charged. He didn't fight like an animal. He fought like something defending its world. No hesitation, no wasted movement. Claws tore, bone-crushing jaws snapped, and plated hide shrugged off acidic spit. Lena barely had time to retreat to a tree root and pull up her field tablet to record the footage. She wouldn't need to call for help. She already had it. 2 minutes later, it was over. The jungle floor was a torn, steaming mess of viscera and shattered tech. Ghost turned, blood dripping from his fangs. Lena stepped forward, unafraid. She pressed a cloth to one of the new burns scoring his shoulder. "Hey," she whispered. "You okay?" He chuffed deep and slow. His shoulder trembled slightly, but he stayed still as she patched the wound. And then, from the underbrush, came a faint cough. They found the missing patrol. 2 of them had hidden beneath a broken ravine edge, wounded but alive. The third lay slumped nearby, injured, breathing, shallow but conscious. When they saw Ghost behind Lena, they flinched in terror. "It's okay," she said, raising both hands. "He's with me." One of the aliens in injured Skarn tech stammered. That thing, it saved us?" Lena nodded. "He's not a thing." She turned toward Ghost, who sat quietly beside her like a war monument. "He's my thing." Hours later, they returned to the outpost. Lena rode in the evac cart with the wounded. Ghost padded behind them the whole way. Commander Yeren stood at the gate as they returned, flanked by security teams. The usual tension was gone. Nobody aimed weapons anymore. There was no point. Ghost had earned something ancient. Respect. Your RIN single quotes S mandibles clicked as he watched the wounded carried off. 3 mercenary kill beasts neutralized, he muttered. 1 Varak, no losses. Dr. Vesh appeared beside him, arms folded. "Still think it's just a pet?" Yeren didn't answer. Instead, he turned and watched as Ghost lowered his massive frame onto the landing pad beside Lena's bunkhouse. resting his head beside the doorway. His plaited tail curled lazily over the entrance, like a living barricade, and the station's personnel, slowly, silently, began to feel safe, not because of the fences, not because of the tech, because one human made the monster choose them, and the monster stayed. The outpost had changed. It wasn't official. There was no ceremony, no policy update, no speech, but everyone knew. Patrols didn't walk alone anymore. They walked with a soft murmur of relief because Ghost was nearby. Cargo deliveries were quicker, safer, and almost casual. Night shifts no longer required full armor because Ghost was watching, and Ghost didn't sleep. At least, not like anything else on Fenris 9. He dozed in brief spells, always with one eye half-open, nostrils twitching. His great head would rise at the sound of footfalls, and if it wasn't Lena's gait, he would lift to full height within seconds. One night, the power grid faltered during a storm. Lighting flickered. Security feeds went dark. For 30 breathless minutes, the jungle wrapped around Coron Delta like a fist. Then the first screen tore through the comms. A perimeter sensor flared red motion near the hydroponics dome. Ghost was already moving before the outpost even reacted. Lena watched from the infirmary window as his black mass surged through the downpour, gliding between bolt strikes like a phantom of bone and thunder. She didn't even need to call him. He was already there. Two unauthorized humanoid figures had slipped through the blind spot created by the storm rogue scavengers, masked and cloaked, dragging a neural snare cart. They'd chosen the wrong moon and the wrong night. They never made it back to their ship. By the time the grid came back online, the feed showed 2 half-crushed exosuits smoking in the mud. Neither attacker was breathing. Ghost loomed over them, his chest rising and falling, in rhythm with the dying echoes of the storm. He didn't roar. He didn't growl. He just stood there, drenched, silent, unchallenged. The next morning, the Allied Research Pact issued a quiet, encrypted directive to all stations in Sector Theta. Do not interfere with Outpost Coron Delta's security protocols. A sector class. Guardian entity is present. Assume human-aligned status. Do not approach the human unless invited. Back at the outpost, Lena knelt beside Ghost, dabbing antiseptic foam on a fresh laceration above his eye. She worked gently, unfazed by the dozens of alien workers peering from windows and rooftops, staring at the predator as if he were a deity in armor. Did you really have to slam his head into the dome wall? She murmured. Ghost snorted, eyes half-lidded, exhaling with a noise that almost sounded smug. From behind her, Commander Yeren approached slowly. Not close, never too close, but close enough to be seen, to be heard. You've changed this place, he said. Lena didn't look up. He changed it. No, you changed him. She stood and turned to face the commander. The medic uniform hung loose on her frame, stained and patched from weeks in the wild. Her eyes, however, were calm, centered, the kind of quiet that comes from knowing you stood next to death, and it chose not to take you. I didn't tame him, she said softly. I just didn't run. I saw pain, and I helped. And now he kills for you. Lena shook her head. No, he kills for us, because he chose to, because we showed him something new. Yeren looked at Ghost, again massive, unreadable, terrifying. Do you understand what this means? He whispered. Lena's voice was quiet. Yes. She turned to walk away, and Ghost rose to follow without a sound. Yeren stood alone for a long time before whispering to himself. They don't just survive the monsters. They change them. And somewhere deep in the jungle, the other Varak watched the skies, waiting, because now they had seen the impossible. A human had fed death, and death had stayed. By the 43rd day, Coron Delta was no longer just an outpost. It was something else, something larger than its steel walls and research towers, something whispered across relay stations and border channels alike. They called it the Human's Den. Now, not because humans had claimed it with guns or fleets. Because one human had walked into the wild, touched a nightmare, and never flinched. Ghost had become a myth long before the bureaucrats caught up. Station logs overflowed with footage of him, sleeping beside the fuel tanks, scaring off jungle. Lizards dragging a downed comms drone gently back to the landing pad like a proud retriever. He refused to enter buildings, but would wait just outside any room Lena occupied, as if drawing a silent perimeter around her. But the final proof that the galaxy had changed came not in the form of another attack, but an arrival. It began with tremors. Heavy ones. Footage from Drone Unit 12 caught the blur first to low, slinking figure moving through the forest floor with impossible stealth for its size. And another. And another. Not attacking. Not charging. Just watching. When the fog cleared, 4 other Varroks stood just beyond the fence line, their bone-plated hides slick with moss and rain. No one could move. Turrets locked on. Drones spun into combat orbit. Evacuation protocols lit up the tower screens. Lena stepped outside. Ghost rose beside her. He didn't growl. He didn't threaten. He simply looked across the clearing at the others. And CHUFFED. One of the newcomers stepped forward, head low, eyes fixed on Lena. RIN. Watching from the tower, whispered, "It's not just one. It was never just one. They've been watching since the beginning." On the jungle floor, Lena raised her hand slowly and crouched. The new Varrock halted, but didn't retreat. It sat. Behind her. Ghost turned his great head and nudged Lena gently in the back with his snout. "Go on." She reached into her pouch, pulled out a ration bar, and tossed it carefully into the dirt in front of the newcomer. The beast sniffed, tasted, looked at her. Then lay down. And a second followed, and a third, and in silence, so deep it pressed against the glass of the observation room, the predators rested ringed around the outpost, not attacking, not hunting. Guarding. Dr. Vesh's hands trembled as he spoke into the station's audio log. Date: Cycle 88. Fenris time. Species: Varrock. Behavior: unknown, non-aggressive, aligned. Conclusion: the human did not tame one predator. Showed an entire species another way to survive. Not with teeth, but with trust. Within hours, the footage spread beyond Fenris 9. Outposts in other systems watched the scene on repeat. Military analysts gawked. Cultural historians wept. 1,000 alien civilizations rewrote their understanding of loyalty, of monsters, of humans, not because Lena Maris had saved a beast, but because she'd shared something no one else dared. Offer. Belonging. Ghost, now joined by his silent kin, remained at the outpost. They patrolled at dusk and lay near the walls during rain. The jungle stopped testing them. Poachers and pirates avoided the entire sector. Coron Delta became the safest and strangest research site in the galaxy. When Lena was finally called back to Central Command for debriefing, she stood at the boarding ramp of the shuttle, duffel in hand. Ghost watched her go. His claws dug silently into the soil. She paused. Turned. And smiled. "You coming?" For a moment he didn't move. Then the earth shook. He rose, padded forward, and climbed onto the cargo ramp behind her. The crew didn't object, because how could they? The human had fed a predator, and now it followed her not as a beast, but as something far more terrifying. Friend, across the galaxy, the story traveled. In whispers, in video clips, in awestruck breath. They thought it was mercy, but it wasn't. It was a bond. And now, the monsters listen when a human calls.